Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Perspective. Words fail us as we look at the horrendous effects of 9th May, of 16th December 9 years ago, as Pakistan buried its children, and of course our continued efforts against the kind of terrorism that we saw on the December 16th, 9 years ago, are still continuing. Our armed forces at this time stand with the people of this country and against the kind of terrorism that we saw, the children that we buried on the December 16th. We'll be talking about our continued resolve to fight terrorism following that horrendous attack, and a little later on we'll also be talking about, of course, the Election Commission's the decision of the Supreme Court on the elections of February 8th. For all intents and purposes, the nation is now resolved to cast their votes on the February 8th, as the schedule of the Election Commission also has been given out. We'll be talking about this, we'll be talking about the decision itself that came out, and of course the corresponding schedule that the Election Commission has since then given. All of that today on Perspective. I have with me Ammar Ziauddin, who is a legal expert. Thank you for being with us. And Agha, Iqrar, Haroon, who is a political analyst. Thank you for joining us today. Let's talk about the Supreme Court's decision. Ammar, how do you look at the decision? Of course, you know, it's welcome how that clarity has been provided by the Supreme Court, and also the certainty that we are all going to be casting our vote on February 8th now.
Yeah, I think it's good that we're moving towards election, and I'm happy that this Chief Justice has taken this initiative to aggressively enforce the already prescribed schedule for the election. And I think overall it's good that we're moving towards election. Of course, there are certain other facets of what happened yesterday. Some of them pertain to the conduct of the judges, which is a separate debate altogether. One other aspect obviously is we feel that the courts need to do more to appear a bit more impartial.
Okay.
I think this decision needs to be analyzed in the political context that we're operating in.
Let's talk more about that. I'm going to take Agha Sahab on this also. Agha Sahab, you know, as far as the decision with regard to the political parties are concerned, do you think that, you know, perhaps it was you know, a need to resolve the kind of uncertainty that was being created? You know, of course, the main political parties had also said that they want to be part of this, you know, case as far as the Supreme Court is concerned. And what would have followed, of course, you know, if this had continued, would have meant perhaps more uncertainty. And of course, following the schedule, the fact that time was of the essence seems to be largely behind this. Isn't that true?
Let's see. At the first stance, this submission of this petition was, you can say, a contempt of court, because the Chief Justice was very clear in last two hearing of some other cases, election must be on 8th of February. So he was very clear, and he said this is done, you cannot change. So first of all, I cannot understand how a judge of a Lahore High Court, he started hearing this case when there are very categorical statements and advice from the Chief Justice of Supreme Court.
But if we were to hear their side, you know, then of course impartiality is also a strong tenet of should be a strong tenet.
What kind of impartiality? What kind of impartiality?
I'm saying that, you know, for them it started with having adequate, you know, a level playing field, all of that, you know, the things that PTI has been saying also.
The case was, the hearing was about, I mean, using assistant commissioners and the deputy commissioners as returning officer. Was it the first time in Pakistan? What about the 2018 election? And what about the 1985 elections?
Those are important points, and they're relevant points.
So impartial, there was no concept of impartiality. Impartiality was this: the Supreme Court had to come out and try to fix this confusion, which was all planned by PTI through this petition.
Let me go to Ammar. Ammar, of course, that is also, like I said, even yesterday we were talking about this, and political parties, other political parties have said that when a party is so ill prepared, as we have seen, in this instance, not having adequate candidates in the field, not having campaigning in the field, not knowing who is contesting from where. In that kind of a scenario, perhaps this was a bid, and this is what other political parties are saying, a bid to delay the elections.
So I think this strategy, obviously, once you're under the pump, you think of different moves, right? I, for one, will never support judicial officers playing an executive role. I come from a school of thought who's always...
But hasn't it been done before? That's my question. And
Even
that's what Agha Sahib
I think the law allows for it, right? 55
Okay,
subsection 3 allows for it, and they wanted an enforcement from the Lahore High Court of that specific section. Other than that, they had challenged the Vides as well. Even so, even if the law prescribes for it, going to the court and seeking a direction for the judicial officers to act as returning officers, I think in such a polarized political atmosphere, even who is to say if bureaucracy is partisan, judiciary will not be partisan, because this is the campaign that you build up, and it's extremely dangerous for the country when you try and criticize judiciary like this. So judiciary or judicial officers
should not be criticized.
I think political parties build this campaign, right? That perhaps there are institutions who are dead against us, and this criticism, even though it doesn't look well or sit well for the bureaucracy, but it is more dangerous when we say, and for the country as a whole.
And for the confidence in the judiciary.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think this is a contempt. I think this is something that we should avoid. Chief Justice used these words, and something that he should restrain on as well.
But he also said that Lahore High Court's irresponsible decision.
That we agree.
Irresponsible and delivered in haste.
That we agree. I think for the Lahore High Court to grant a stay order, and there's a bit on the territorial jurisdiction as well, all ROs, over 2,700 ROs who've been under training, for Lahore High Court to suspend that notification, I think it's rightly pointed out that it did create uncertainty, and it was a good timely intervention.
There's also something about contempt proceedings that was said during Iqrar Sahib.
Yes, the notice has been placed, I think so, to Umair Niazi, who went with this petition. And if you remember, in your show, we discussed some days ago, actually there is no political structure left with PTI. So election doesn't suit PTI. And technically speaking, there was no hierarchical and structural system within the PTI even in 2018 election. It was given by someone. And since someone case is still in the Supreme Court, and you will see. Just imagine, I am giving you some tallies of 2018 election. There were 85,600 polling stations. And usually every polling station has more than 2 polling booths. And every polling booth must have one person from each party. So they are 255,000. Do you think today's PTI has such people with them to just man one day of the election, which is the polling day? And we have seen how many people were there when they elected their chairman. Even 500 people were not there. And if you talk about the seats, the entire seats of all the provincials and the National Assembly, there are 577 seats. So they need to have at least 577 people to pitch them over there as candidates. So these are the facts and figures. I'm talking about empirical data. This is not possible.
These are not the only facts, right? Let's be fair to our audience.
Let me complete my point, please.
Please.
Complete your point.
So these are the realities PTI is facing, and in these realities, it is impossible for PTI to go for elections, and they would definitely try to boycott election just maybe 2 days before, maybe the one week before, and we will see how many people would be asked the bat as their you can say as a symbol. So the things would be clear on that particular day.
You think PTI will boycott?
Definitely. This is not think. I'm very clear about that. I'm taking my responsibility.
Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough. Ji.
Yeah, I think I absolutely agree. It's impossible for PTI to contest elections in this atmosphere. The candidates they do field are arrested arbitrarily under the MPO orders. So yeah, I don't think that they'll have the numbers in this atmosphere for them to contest the elections.
But of course, I mean, if we look at it legally speaking, the events of May 9th and whatever has happened since then, if you look at the cases at this time, Ammar, even your legal opinion, I'll come to you after Iqrar Sahab. As far as the cases at this time are concerned, we, the former Prime Minister has, apart from the Tosha Khana, again, we know about the other case as far as the famed 190 million pounds case. There's also, a number of cases against him. So in terms of facing numerous, and other than that, of course, the marriage issue, there are other cases also. I mean, I don't want to talk about all of them, but I'm saying that there are multiple legal challenges for him at this time. In that kind of an environment, he has fielded another, there's another chairman of the party. For them to have that kind of leadership when we don't see any of his, main leaders associated with the PTI in the field at this time, of course, it comes to it's a difficult time for the party because, they're facing legal challenges. Yes. But even, when you talk about the level playing field, it's how do you balance the two? Level playing field does not mean that they will not, have to face their cases. It does not mean that they yes. don't have, they're not under the blanket of the law. So those are two considerations at this
I agree with you. And if you remember, in 2002, Mia Nawaz was not in Pakistan. And they made this PMLQ also. And for People's Party, after the elections, they made this Patriots. Even in that election, when total political party of Nawaz was totally arrested, they got 17 seats in National Assembly and more than 26 seats in Punjab. If you come to the 2018, Mia Nawaz was arrested.
But they didn't boycott any election.
Yeah, exactly. I'm coming to the point. Mia Nawaz was in jail. His daughter was in jail. They contested the election. And whatever happened on the night of, counting night, this RTS issues and everything closed down. Even then, PML had good enough seats in National Assembly as well as in provinces. So it is not a matter, and if you think and if you remember, Benazir Bhutto came on, if I'm not wrong, the 4th April 1988 to Lahore. And she was waiting for a IGI formation before she even arrived in Pakistan. She fought that election and she won that election, if you remember. This was a total, a failed attempt to stop her from National Assembly.
But you see,
so this is a history.
But were the political parties, these other political parties, when we talk about the PMLN at that time and the PPP of that time under the leadership of Benazir Bhutto, were they also in the kind of disarray that we are looking at when we look at, for example, the PTI?
I agree. Let me add one more point. In 2013 election, ANP was not allowed to contest. They had at least 7 martyrs in 7 days. Remember? Including the son of Balor Saab.
Yes.
So, they fought elections. And this message came from the TTP. We would not allow ANP to contest the elections, if you remember. They did. So, they are political parties. Unfortunately, PTI, if you remember,
so then just, this kind of sloganeering or saying that there is, I'm not, saying there's not adequate level playing field, we don't have candidates, we're not being allowed.
What kind of field they
Those
want
are not,
after
political parties have to rise to the challenge.
Exactly.
They have to
face.
Right.
They had to face. And neither you nor myself did this May 9th. So whatever happened with their party, it's happened after that. So, who is responsible for May 9? Whosoever is responsible, he is responsible for the situation, so-called level playing field, which is being allegedly denied They are responsible for that.
Ammar, legally, as far as the legal challenges of the former Prime Minister is concerned, certainly he's in jail, and other leadership of the PTI also, the former foreign minister also, all of, the main leadership at this time, we know, if they are not, certainly not ready to contest the elections, we don't see their presence outside at this time. In terms of the legality of the challenges, how are you looking at these cases? Let's talk about, the 190 million, that kind of, where do you see it going?
So it's expanding universe, right? In some of these cases, for instance, the one pertaining to the session judge, which was a contempt matter, and one more matter pertaining to Cypher, you have the top criminal lawyer in Islamabad who's acting as a prosecutor. So, it's a very good legal team against him as well. So I don't think that there's going to be any relief in sight for him insofar as these cases are concerned. Of course, they're going to be decided on their own merits, and that is what we can hope at this point in time.
But so in the meantime, of course, these cases are continuing and he's facing them. His party, in the meantime, if there's another chairman in the field, they can certainly contest with whatever.
No, I think this conversation just carried on after what our colleague said was they're going to boycott the elections. There's no such announcement as yet, and I hope that they don't make this silly mistake. Elections should never be boycotted. They should participate in the electoral process.
No matter how many seats they
Yeah,
get.
of course.
And of course, the former Prime Minister has been known to get one seat at one time, as far as I think his own seat. So
yeah, that is what Harvard Zinn used to say as well, right? He used to say, don't compare the civil rights movement when they were at their swell, at their peak. It started with one man. So your journey starts with one seat, and then he went on to become the Prime Minister.
And of course, if there's that kind of popularity, or if he has that kind of following that he says, and he's always maintained that he has, then we will perhaps see people supporting him.
Yeah.
So we don't know, right? I mean, it has to be.
I agree with you.
It comes down to the crunch. It's about the election day.
Yes.
And it's about how prepared they are for the election
So
day.
he should test.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think just to add one more point, I think you picked up the word that the Lahore High Court acted recklessly, and I think the Supreme Court acted recklessly as well when he placed a contempt order to a petitioner who moved for a constitutional, moved the petition into the constitutional jurisdiction seeking a relief. A relief can be denied. An order could be, bad in law, but you can't initiate contempt proceedings of people.
So a legal question.
Yeah.
Do you think, I mean, from the perspective of a layman, is this a trend, in your opinion, that we are going to be seeing? Because there are a lot of petitions that are, that the judges contend at times are, actually waste the court's time. Is this a trend that you think is going to be followed? It's going to trickle down in terms of, perhaps contempt proceedings against a relief that is sought when that, it is just to delay or for any other intentions?
Mia Saab was a petitioner in Memo Gate. It's a bad trend. This should not be celebrated. Courts should not be pushed into the political thicket. I understand that PTI is trying to do it by design. It's their strategy. Their own lawyers come on media and say, we moved petition in all 4 courts, of the provinces, not just the Lahore High Court. So it was not our intention to derail the electoral process. But I think that involving judiciary in purely political questions generally should be
The
discouraged.
Lahore High Court also said that there are 1.3
3 million, yeah.
cases that are pending. In this kind of a scenario, when we are, we don't have the kind of legal reforms we would have liked, and there are a lot of issues in our legal system. Should the judiciary be involved in the electoral process, in your opinion?
No, they should not be. They should not have the positions of ROs. They should not in any way be involved in the conduct of elections. It's purely an executive function, and executive officers, even if you are aggrieved by some of these executive officers and their MPO orders for your short-term political gain, the bigger question is, do you want to politicize your judiciary, which is extremely critical for a functioning democracy? They should not be an object of political ridicule. So I think it was a mistimed move, but
But
it
Iqrar
has been
sahab-
made a spectacle of as well.
But Iqrar sahab, you know, we on the one hand we argue that of course, you know, this trend of issuing contempt proceedings, like Ammar also is saying here. On the other hand, when knowingly, you know, where we are as far as the election is concerned, when we, you know, the delay is something that we cannot afford at this time. Of course, it's at the cost of uncertainty also. When a petition like this is filed, is contempt really that wrong?
Yes, because just 4 or 5 days ago, 2 judges of Supreme Court categorically told whosoever would be involved to create any misunderstanding or any ambiguity about the elections, they would be contempted. Just 4 or 5 days ago. And after that, this petition came. So, Supreme Court was very clear about February 8th date.
So when there's a well-designed attempt, and I'm not saying all political parties, and I think have from time to time been known to use these kind of tactics. I'm not talking about now. I'm talking about generally in our legal system.
I doubt any political party ever had gone to any court for the postponement of elections. I doubt. I'm covering this journalism for the last 35 years.
I mean on the issue of delaying proceedings, not on the elections.
Exactly. So it was actually be fixed. It was a matter of elections. The decision was taken by the Supreme Court. Election would be held on, of course, with the consultation of the president. The election would be held. So blah blah date. It was, and PTI went for the petition. On PTI petition, Supreme Court had this decision. So it was fixed.
No, High Court.
So it was fixed. No. So Supreme Court, the Chief Justice asked the President.
Initially,
yes, please.
Of course.
So we should be very clear.
Very clear.
So these orders came from the Chief Justice. So he was, protecting his orders. So whatever did happen last night, it was a protection of his own orders.
Okay, Ammar, as far as acceptance of the results are concerned, you know, we've also, you know, not seen elections where all political parties have ever said that, oh, we accept all the results of the election. This election, how do you look at this election when it will happen on February 8th?
Another factual correction, Ji. Justice Midallah made the statement in the court a couple of days ago. The petition was moved on December 6th. Just factual correction. I made this remark earlier as well. It's an extremely charged political environment, right? And I'm very happy that we are having this conversation that election should not be delayed when we should have had election in Punjab and KP already, you know, beyond 90-day period. So
well, further delayed.
Yeah, further delay. So I'm happy that we're having this conversation. I think there hasn't been an election in Pakistan that has not divided the country more than it's brought them together, and this is where I feel our leaders need to evolve as well. You
think our leaders basically need to stand up and
accept the results,
results, move on, congratulate the opponents, whoever wins, and, you know, move on, because and let them formulate the government, and it should continue for 5 years, and we should have that kind of democracy which
Khan, Nawaz Sharif, or, you know, Bilawal now. Somebody has to win, somebody has to lose. Of course, we've not had by and large fair elections in our country, other than 73 perhaps. But our leaders need to step up as well and bring the society together. You know, the reckless statements right now or post-elections, charged presses from PML right now, they don't help because they sort of compound the political atmosphere more and, you know, polarize the society more. So bring them together. Let's go into the elections and, you know, whoever wins,
your
wins.
Comments and then
I agree. There should be some maturity. But this is, you can say, I can only hope for that. Unfortunately, in Pakistan.
But, you know, Mia Saab said that day, I'm just interjecting, he said that, you know, there are some things and some you know, wounds that are not forgotten. And if we look at the legality, and, you know, it's not about which political party is saying what. It's about the fact that when we are looking at this legal, you know, framework sort of collapse as far as his cases are concerned at this time. And then we're looking at, you know, things that are now unraveling in a manner in front of everyone. as far as his cases are concerned, as far as, things that were said against him are concerned, then we come down to that question that, can we have that kind of largesse from political leaders all around when they've been through that kind of rigmarole to come out and say that, look, in spite of everything, I'm going to accept. Of course, he said that I don't believe in vindictiveness. And he said that, I'm going to go forward and be as gracious as possible. But that is what our system demands, right? That's
yes, and they should be mature enough, as I mentioned. If you remember, we had a national government in Pakistan, which was a government of Pakistan People's Party. If you remember, PMLN was part of that government for some months.
Yes.
Everybody was there, ANP was there.
So when we can have that kind of government, then we can also have all political parties accepting the results.
Actually, what happened? After 2013 elections, the Prime Minister, the then Prime Minister, Mia Nawaz Sharif, went to the, I was in National Assembly, at the table of the then Leader of Opposition and this person who is in jail. So and that particular day, he had a very mature speech. We should move forward. We cannot always, clog ourselves.
And talk about the past. And we have to move forward. Thank you so much. Agha, Iqrar, Haroon Saab, thank you. Ammar Ziauddin, thank you so much. I want to move on and talk about the events of 16th December, 9 years ago. Of course, the kind of terrorism we saw is unparalleled. The kind of brutality we saw, the kind of suffering we saw, little children is not forgotten, even one day, by Pakistan. But we also have seen an unprecedented amount of action by our military forces, by our armed forces against this kind of terrorism. I want to talk about that. Of course, the APS attack was extremely tragic, and it's been 9 years today. I have with me Brigadier retired Waqar Hassan Khan. Thank you so much for being with us. Brigadier Waqar, of course, the events of 16 December cannot be forgotten. And of course, my question to you is, where are we now, after the kind of struggle that we've seen, after the kind of elimination that, of course, our armed forces, our security forces are responsible for, meeting every challenge as far as terrorism is concerned?
I think 16 December is definitely, I would say it's a double pain for Pakistan. 71, and then you had 16 December, the APS attack on innocent children, sorry, and loss of life, young kids who would have been, I think, university going by this time. And I've seen the messages coming from their mothers and loved ones. It's very, very tragic. But I think there was a resolve at that time that now or never, and no more. And the state then, of course, the government of Pakistan went into an aggressive mode against terrorism. And it has definitely seen different phases, especially after US withdrawal. It was expected that probably sense would prevail and we'll have better relationship and terrorism would gradually subside. But somehow it has picked up, especially in 2023. And Pakistan Defense Forces, Army, Intelligence, Police, and civil administration, especially in the bordering districts, have to now do it again, I think, right from zero, because terrorism was controlled to some extent. But unfortunately, from Afghanistan, it has been used as a tool of policy. There have been ups and downs. But I feel that now there is always that one, there is no provision or space for any accommodation for the terrorists. Those who lay down arms, like Guzar Imam Shambe, and he was mainstream. But those who are involved in, I think, heinous crimes of terrorizing civilians, then killing or martyring our soldiers and officers, will not be spared. So this is, I would say, the last battle, because the Afghanistan, we have a lot of leverages. We have even discussed earlier that Pakistan has never applied those leverages negatively. But I think now is the time that in case push comes to shove, then we have to probably come up with very aggressive strategy. As far as military operations or intelligence-based operations are concerned,
talk about that. I want to talk about the strategy also, the National Action Plan. Let me come back to you. We are with us Dr. Khurram Abbas, who is Director ISSI. Dr. Khurram, as far as perhaps is it time, in your opinion, when we need to revisit the National Action Plan at this time in the light of the recent changing situation, as far as the spate of terrorism is concerned?
Yeah, well, Paul, thanks so much for having me on the show. The National Action Plan was came up after the APS attack. At that time, if you look at the strategies of the TTP, they were totally compared to today. Because at that time, they were following their own indigenous strategies. But after 2021, so the TTP has re-emerged with new strategies. If you look at the recent strategies of TTP, they are trying to avoid attacks on the people rather than the attacks on the
Let us reconnect with you. Let me go to Brigadier Saab. Brigadier Saab, again, the same question to you. As far as the National Action Plan is concerned, are we going to be, do you think it's the right time for us to revisit, where we lack, if we look at the points in the National Action Plan, of course, we have comprehensively done, most of it, but where we've failed, in your opinion, or where we need perhaps more effort now?
I think the National Action Plan came a very comprehensive concept or plan. It covered all, right from capacity building of civil law enforcement agencies and police, especially KP and Balochistan. Then, of course, were special courts to try and then there was a sunset clause, of course. And laws were tightened against, basically negative and extremist kind of use of any type of media. There was also censorship of not eulogizing, let's say, the terrorist. And then, of course, was basically the mainstreaming of FATA district, which has taken place. But I still feel that in the bordering districts where we have now spate of terrorism, or adjacent like DA Khan, this area, Daraband and Darazandar, basically part of the main DA Khan, but then adjacent to the old FATA. So there are routes which come as difficult terrain. So there, I think, writ of the state, including judicial system, had to then come up compatible from FCR there to shift to proper magistracy system. I think there are a lot of voids still, and if you've followed the Chief of Army Staff visit to the US, I think there was talk of capacity building, and I'm sure high-tech weapon system, because now the terrorists are also using high-tech weapon system. Some of the weapon system left by the US, which are closer to $7 billion, as per some reports. And I think this was also discussed. Now we have surveillance, then drones, and then, of course, ground-based weapon systems. So a lot of, I think, innovation and improvement has come up. But I think ultimately it's the complete following or execution of the National Action Plan. I don't think so there was any dearth in that. I think lack of political will also, because different, like last government, PTI's government then went into negotiations and giving some space. So then, of course, it affected that trajectory that Pakistan was moving. So they got a lot of space, to 30 to 40,000. And in garb of...
Brigadier Saab, I'll go to Dr. Khurram. I'll come back to you. Dr. Khurram, I don't know if you've been listening to what Brigadier Waqar have just said. In terms of the last government strategy, as far as, dealing with Afghanistan and, of course, the terrorism issue that we are looking at this time. Perhaps, a rethink there is also telling us to go back to the National Action Plan?
Yeah, sorry, my voice was not clear at that time. So I was talking about the strategies of TTP. The TTP has come up with new strategies. For example, they are not targeting the law enforcement agencies, right? They are focusing on the law enforcement agency. And they are not targeting the people of local public as compared to the previous decade. Secondly, they are also, they have also launched the shadow governments in all parts of KP and also in Balochistan. So they have at least trying to come up with some kind of new strategies as compared to past. So in this case, I think one of the things that were, like Brigadier Saab was talking about, the PTI strategies, I think one thing is very clear. You need consistency. if you want to go for negotiations, go for it with consistency. But if you want to deal them through military perspective, then you have to be consistent. In last 10 years, if you look at from 2014 onwards, we had various operations. Operations of the Earth, then there was Operation Abdul Fasad, and we have seen that a very dip in the terrorist activities all across Pakistan. But after 2021, I think there are so many things have changed. First of all, the government tried to appease and engaged somehow the TTP, and at the same time,
that strategy we've seen fail over. We saw, as far as the last government is concerned, perhaps that strategy there's a rethink in order there.
Yes. So, according to the UN Monitor report, there are still 3,000 to 5,000 TTP terrorists in Afghanistan. And these terrorists can collect funds. They can also collect weapons. They have access to the American leftover weapons. So, they are now very much not only politically motivated, but they have also they can also create lethal impact with their attacks. If you look at the recent attacks, the tragedy is like with one soldier you can have one terrorist. So overall there is a clear intent. The capacity they have increased as compared to past. So one thing about the National Action Plan is like
Brigadier Sahab was just saying also, and you are also saying the same thing in terms of the mechanisms and the technology has changed for the terrorists also. It's become perhaps of course more easier for them, and of course correspondingly it's more challenging to deal with the kind of technology that is in hands of such terrorists at this time.
Definitely. And one thing is about the role of international forces, the hostile countries. They have also played a very significant role in this entire phenomena. If you look at the recent statements of various Indian political parties, especially the BJP's leaders, if you look at the Modi's, the successor that is known as the Yogi Adityanath, he has been very categorical. Same is the case with Ajit Doval, the National Security Advisor. So one thing is very clear that on one side, they are politically motivated, they have rejuvenated, they have got a space in Afghanistan. On the other side, they have a capacity improved. Thirdly, they have got some, international support. But at the same time, I think one thing is very clear, that our focus should be on the hardcore. So there are two types of approaches to counter terrorism. One is soft approach and one is the hard approach. I think the hard approach should be carried out without any gap, and this should be our policy. I think the soft approach is more or less, I think, significant, but at the same time there is no clear threat as compared to the new recruitment is concerned, because new recruitments are not being come up from the mainland of Pakistan like Punjab, Sindh or KP or Balochistan. In fact, mostly the recruited persons have been come from Afghanistan.
Do you think, Dr. Khurram, do you think there's also a global impact of terrorism at this time on what's happening, in our region particularly?
Definitely. The issue is that one of the things that these terrorist networks are basically motivated through various. These motivations are come through various religious or ethnic motivations. At the same time, these motivations come from some international incidents that are being taking place. For example, Palestine. For example, if you look at Kashmir. So these people try to engage people or those youth who are being neglected in those areas, or basically try to motivate or instigate these kind of vulnerable youth with these kind of double standards that are being played by the international community against Muslims.
Let me come back to you, Brigadier Sahab. There's also the issue of CPEC. What is a conspiracy has always been, by our neighbor and the hostile neighbor that we have as far as against CPEC. And, that also we've seen recently, and that is also the effects of that we are suffering, in the form of terrorism. The kind of attempts that come from there and Raw's involvement, all of those things are also, constantly contributing to the situation.
I think when there is space available, the hostile agency definitely play against your interest or the regional interest. I quickly cover 2 points. One is, of course, diplomatic effort at regional level. Moscow format, like all Central Asians, Russia, China, and Iran, all are buried, and they were, I think, communicated to the Taliban government to stop these terrorist outfits. The other is, I think, related to repatriation of illegal immigrants, 17.5 lakh. Because this spate of terrorism is also because of the space available. It was very difficult to pinpoint because there were people without registration, and 17.5 lakh is a very large number, but they will merge with them, then carry out. So I think 25% has been completed, and I think in another year, inshallah, it will be over. So they go back. So there will be, I think, a lot of sanitization of the area after that. Meanwhile, I feel that 2023-24 end will be the decisive year. Inshallah, it will be done through the hard strategy, and of course we have to protect our interests like CPEC, development. Then a lot of weapons going to come to Balochistan, Reko, and then of course oil and gas and minerals. So Pakistan has to, for its economic and national security, go ahead with this aggressive strategy.
Right. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have. Thank you so much for being with us. Brigadier Waqar Hassan Khan, thank you for joining us. Dr. Khurram Abbas, thank you for your very valuable input. Of course, our security forces, our armed forces remain committed to ensuring the peace and security of the region. Their efforts to, of course, counter the kind of terrorism, the spate of terrorism that, of course, we've seen recently are unquestionable. The resolve is unquestionable, and even today, none of us can forget the events of December 16, 9 years ago. We continue to relive the kind of horror that was visited on Pakistan by the terrorists, and we are resolved to ensure that Pakistan and its children shall always remain secure. Thank you so much for joining us today on Press.